Hi, welcome. On this video, I'm going to be responding to one of the incidents in the dog training community that really sparked tremendous controversy on social media by way of those who identify as balanced dog trainers. Again, the controversy triggered off by way of the concept called the bonking dogs, which you're going to see here. You're going to see the actual incident that triggered off so much controversy to the level of, Gellman actually having to get the police involved by way, again, of him receiving death threats, media attention. In fact, one of the media outlets called Left Lady Thinker actually contacted me and asked, wanted to get my take on it. However, here's the thing. I said, sure, I'll talk about it, but I'm going to talk about the real issue in the dog training world. And interesting, they refused to speak with me after I said, yeah, I'll talk about it, but I'll put it in context by way of the real problem in the dog training world. So interesting that, again, this is, again, I talk about this agenda. I talk about how it is the dog training world is definitely just not interested in confronting the real issue, what it is in the dog training world. I talk about this idea that training is a learning-based exercise. Whereas I show that no, it's actually a intervention, and it's not a learning-based exercise once a relationship problem is already underway. And so when you see these controversies happening, well, there's a reason for that. By way of this very superficial idea, how trainers approach, how they jump into a relationship problem, and approaches learning-based exercise by way of superficially motivating dogs to respond. So again, this is where you're getting all the controversy coming from, so that when you bring influence into the equation, if you start correcting dogs, or you throw a towel, which represents the bonker, okay, and then you get a reaction from a dog, you get all those dynamics, including the reaction, which we'll talk about. That's going to spark all this controversy by way of a failure, no depth, a failure to even be able to, reconcile or be able to work beyond certain reactions from dogs, be able to put those reactions within the proper context by way of, clarity. Okay, that comes from depth. Okay, it comes from, aligning with a proper process that's going to provide clarity for the dog, clarity for the owner, and be able to actually affect change, okay? Be actually change perceptions of dogs versus all the confusion, dogs, moving around in the training environment for treats, for motivating agents, looks really good, can feel really good, and all the blame shifting. Dogs get the blame when perceptions of dogs don't actually change. So understand you get this kind of perfect storm happening. And here, what you're seeing with balanced dog trainers is that, and this is why they're losing tools. This is why all these controversies. This is why, again, talk about, the fact that they're in a catch-22. They're in a compromised position by way of being in agreement, okay, with this very superficial idea. And so, they're being challenged at all levels by way of those who identify as force-free. Force-free saying, hold on here a second. Why you're using certain tools, certain concepts. If you watch the video put out by way of Jamie Penrith, who's a balanced dog trainer, going on Good Morning Britain, and the kind of leading up to the moment he's directly challenged by way of he's trying to defend the use of remote collars, and a force-free trainer on there saying, well, hold on here a second. We show that, you can use something to motivate the dog, something positive, something, where training is a learning-based exercise is a training issue, right? So it goes right into this whole issue about the role of influence. What is its role? I show its role is, yeah, definitely to intercept a dog's state of mind. But one of the big missing themes here, okay, is being dialed in. okay, dialed in the right way into the relationship the right way. So the role of influence is going to be proactive. Okay, it needs to be proactive by way of engaging a dog's, again, talk about this dog's level of, stinking thinking. Okay, understand that's one of the big themes that's missing in balanced dog training. So balanced dog trainers, they're aligned with this very superficial idea. So they're not dialed into the relationship with any depth. Okay, so they go along with this learning-based idea. So when they do bring in something like the bonker, or they correct the dog, and you'll see problems with that getting kind of redirected on. Okay, so if bad things happening, you watch the Tom Davis video to be part of my series, and the America's Canine Educator, you'll see that. Okay, again, fueling and feeding into a relationship problem, allowing control to manifest, and then suddenly you correct the dog in a certain moment, and guess what? The dog turns on you. Okay, and understand it. So it's all about being dialed in. There's themes I talk about as part of this approach to dog training that brings everything together, and they're important. Okay, because it's going to provide the clarity that the owner needs, that the dog needs, that the dog training world needs. Okay, to understand that what defines a process. This is why you see these balanced dog trainers trying to call out force-free trainers. I talk about that as well, and they can't do it. It just falls flat. Okay, and meanwhile the dog training world's coming apart at the seams. So all these things matter. But here in this video, I want to provide some depth and context here to this incident, because this is where you'll see a lot of videos put out by those who identify as force-free, trying to use this incident as fuel to their agenda. Okay, and they do this all the time, and they get away with it. And so the force-free movement taking over, that's definitely not a good thing at all. Okay, but you're seeing this through these situations. So balanced dog trainers, basically how you want to see them, they're basically walking the fence, okay, by way of this ideology. They're playing all sides. They're like, if you ask them, Gellman included, oh, do you do clicker training, use treats? Oh, yeah, we do that. Oh, we also do this, that, and that. So they're playing everything. So you can only do that for so long once you understand what this ideology represents, okay? You can get away with that for a certain point, but now you're seeing where they're not. They're losing their tools, all these controversies, because ultimately this ideology, okay, which is a type of belief system, is going to reach its ultimate fulfillment. And, who's got the high ground here? Force-free. Not a good thing, because I show it's not a learning-based exercise. So this is why when I talk about this and call it out, well, guess who gets as offended? What group? Well, balanced dog trainers as well. I get more, more kind of hostility from balanced dog trainers because they don't want to hear it. But again, they're being pushed, they're being kicked off the fence. Understand that all these things with device bans, they can't stop it. I talk about that. So people need to pay attention here, what's going on, because the only way to halt what's happening and to turn this around is for people to understand what defines a process. It's an intervention. Okay, is influence necessary? Yes, absolutely. But it has to come in and align the right way. It can only happen through a intentional interaction-based method that's going to dial you in at the right level to not just the relationship, but the dog's state of mind. I'm going to talk about certain themes here, and it's going to align properly. But this is why, again, when I talk about the parenting example, it's no different than a parent being dialed into the relationship by way of the authoritative parenting style. Certain themes I talk about, they're the same by way of how, parental influence. So we talk about, corrections, discipline, punishment, what, defines all that, like how should you see, your role that way? It's through the relationship. Okay, just how parental influence is defined through a parent who's aligned with, the right parenting style to begin with, but then interacting with a child in meaningful ways. It's the same thing through, discipline, structure, rules, boundaries. Okay, and so, but it's about being dialed in. Okay, in tune with. Okay, that's one big missing theme in balanced dog training. Understand why I talk about the level of thinking being dialed in the dog state of mind. You watch these balanced dog trainers, and this is an example of that. They're not dialed in that way, and so things escalate. Control is manifesting, and then they're jumping in. And then, that's not gonna, that's not gonna end well because, when you're not dialed in the right way, well, all sorts of bad things can happen. But not just that, the ability for the perception of a dog, especially getting these dogs that are holding a higher level of control. I call them 1 percentile dogs. It really matters to be dialed in. It matters with all dogs. Okay, but you get into these situations, that's when you really see it, kind of like the underbelly of this ideology really gets exposed. Okay, people get blindsided, they don't see it coming. It's not dialed in. So I'd really encourage you to pay attention because understand these situations I'm profiling as part of my series, they're opportunities, okay, as an individual, okay, to step back and ask the questions that these trainers are not interested in asking. Okay, understand a lot of these trainers, they just took a hold of this ideology and very easy to be successful and run with it, but not successful the right way. Okay, it plays off of what's happening in by way of dogs. Again, this idea, because what this idea does, it devalues dogs in the end. The social needs of dogs are not being met that way. And that's why all the blame shifting on the dogs has become normalized, and it seems normal to these trainers. Oh, there must be something wrong with the dog. Give it more time, and all the excuses start, or bad things happen. Someone gets bitten. Well, then all hope's gone then for sure. But all the divisiveness and all the stuff you're seeing happen in the dog training world, understand it's all symptomatic. I mean, just apply common sense. And it'll directly point towards what I'm saying is the problem. It's this idea. I mean, do you honestly believe? I mean, that again, that's why I use the parenting example. That when you have a relationship problem between a parent and a child's become very selfish, do you believe at that moment, that it's going to turn into a learning based exercise and just superficially motivate responses using motivating, agents such as a brand new Xbox game? Yes, absolutely, you can, get a selfish child to pick up their toys or do certain things, but then the problem is the current state of the relationship. Now it's become bribery. It's not about response that way. And see, that's the problem. You see, in dogs as social animals, you see these dogs moving around the training environment. Absolutely, they look fantastic. And many do, doing a great sit or down. But there's no depth. These trainers are assuming that, just because from, a dog going into a down or a sit for a treat or for something they want, that you can trust responses, just from the get-go. Based on what exactly? What's the criteria? And I talk about the core ingredients, influence and control, being totally absent. Okay, they're absent from the process. They're absent from this approach. They're motivating dogs this way using motivating agent, and they're assuming that they can be trusted. All these trainers are doing it, and in these core ingredients I talk about, they're not brought into. They're not part of the process the way I describe it. So there's no criteria. They're just making inherently flawed. They're assuming wrongly in a lot of cases. That's why you get a dog on the leash. Okay, you start to bring those core ingredients into the equation. And again, it's important that the right language of the method is spoken by way of intent. I talk about that. You can watch my videos on that. You'll see it. You'll see that contrast right there in real time. You don't have to wait for 4 weeks to waste all your time and money, only to discover, just like I'm saying, it's a total washout. Okay, you're still dealing with the relationship problem. This happens all the time, and it's just so easy for these trainers because they're all doing it to blame these dogs and whatever. They move on like it's not the fault of the process or this idea. So again, understand, it's like the parent example. No, it's not a learning based exercise. Your role in the relationship, it's a type of social. It's a social contract. Okay. That matters. That's absolutely critical. So it's the same thing. And just look around the dog training world. Don't take my word for it. Just start applying critical thinking, common sense. Because understand something. These trainers are not incentivized to do the right thing at where they're at. It's so easy just to keep pushing through, and because it's like it's totally systemic. It's totally inherent to what's going on in the dog training world. It's been happening for so long. It's like collateral damage. It just seems normal because both these groups are doing it. And so when you see this back and forth, that's why again you keep both these groups trying to call each other out. But even these trainers proclaiming themselves to be experts, right, on both these groups, that doesn't even make sense. Like they pretend to be offering something different. Well, who's right and who's wrong? Well, they're both wrong. They're both playing it's like playing the system. It's a rigged game. So anyway, I'm going to play some of this video, um, talk about why this happened. I was going to talk about the solution here. So if you encounter dogs that are holding a certain level of control, what you need to focus in on, your role, but the role of influence, and tie it in properly. So I'm going to play some of the preamble here. Like this is Gellman, talking about the bonker. Okay, trying to kind of, reconcile his method. Okay.
To do, but most people don't know how to stop unwanted behaviors. You don't teach the dog what you want to do without first.
So again, behaviors. There's a word I talk about, unwanted behavior. That word is completely, um, you know, um, hijacked. Okay, in the dog training world, it doesn't even, how they use it. Because here's the thing, I talk about, responses. Okay, trainers that it's just like always. Whenever I talk about dog training, I always think about the parenting example. It'll help a lot. Okay, once a child has become selfish. See, that's the thing that these trainers, they don't connect the dots to behavioral issues to say you get a relationship problem happening. Just like once a child becomes selfish, it's now a relationship problem. Okay, and it's paramount to understand how your role ties in socially, right? So these trainers, they use that word. So a behavior happens again, or that it's a response. Oftentimes when they're setting in motion, certain responses using treats and using motivating agents, even if they're using, and this is called referred to as a 4 quadrant, so they'll bring a negative in, but the problem is that it's a starting point. Okay, it's how they're superficially motivating responses, even with applying a negative to that. I talk about that. You're still not getting around the problem here because, influence itself has to come in at the right level, the right way. It has to take the right form, the process itself. Got to take the path of a intervention. It's got to take the form of a interaction-based method. Okay, understand it's the only way to resolve it. Okay, talk about that. So there is a standard, because here's the thing, even in the dog training world, all these trainers talk about, well, there's more than one way to train. Do you even believe that? Doesn't even make sense. Yeah, you can say that, make that statement based on what's happening, because it's all based on appearances anyway. So that statement makes complete sense. When you start to understand all these trainers, it's all about superficial response. There's no depth, right? There's nothing looking at anything that underpins these responses, right? It doesn't tie in. They don't even connect dots properly. So when they talk about behavior, they don't even reconcile it through the relationship at all. It's all just, it's all superficial. So understand when you hear these trainers talking about certain things. That's why I stop it right away. I say, understand what you're dealing with here. Okay, you're not dealing with an idea or a process that actually connects properly. Okay, so so here when you talk about, Gellman talks about the bonker, this goes right into like old school. And old school isn't exactly a bad thing. Like years ago, you talk about, back, like 30, 40 years ago, didn't really have problems like we have today. It's like, well, treat a dog like a dog. Now you make a statement like that, it's like takes on, like people get offended right away because we've elevated dogs to the level here where it's all permissive and weak, and this has generated all the problems. Now it's like, this is why learning theory, right, has become a part of it, because it plays into people's emotions that way, that type of permissive, dynamic. So again, strength and weakness, it comes through nature. Okay, dogs are part of that. Their nature, but the part of the pack relationship is defined at that level. Okay, I talk about that. So here, to reverse course, like once you get a problem, then guess what? Those core ingredients, they have to come in the right way, at the right level. It doesn't happen through how learning's applied this way. Okay. Because it's this is where you even get into free will. This is why people get so upset, because it's like, well, you want to work off using command right away, using a treat or something to motivate. Trust me, that's not the way to go here. Okay, because even think about the free will of a child that's become selfish. Think about where that will take you if you don't, if you allow it to. It's like, well, I just don't want to have conflict here. I just want to, and then you get this whole thing about at a response level. That's going to take you down a bad path if you don't consider, your role. There is going to be conflict. Okay, but the type of conflict where it's pushback from a child that's become selfish and you're in their airspace differently. Do you understand? It's like a demand. That's why I talk about demand, the difference, and really think about what I'm saying. this is what the dog training world has created. This is what everything's based on. It's like a child say, pick up your toys, simply because it's a reasonable demand. You would say, but I'm the parent, like pick up your toys. They're your toys. Clean up your room. Versus, oh, pick up your toys and here's a brand new Xbox game that you're going to get if you do it. Right? You get you get a very, very fast response. And the response itself can be considered a good in itself. But you have to tie that into the relationship properly. Like, do you understand? You have to really think about that. That's what's not happening. It's the same thing happening in the dog training world. It's just like, so think about that. It's like, then people talk about, when does bribery become bribery? Bribery becomes bribery when you don't tie it in. It's just a superficial response. This is exactly what's happening in the dog training world. It's all driven by appearances. And then you interject all what's happening, all the hypocrisy in the dog training world, the false narratives, right? So superficial, right? All the divisiveness. It all is symptomatic. Understand, there's no accidents, coincidence here. It creates that in people because this is a human problem. It is.
First, stopping the unwanted behavior, especially when the unwanted behavior.
So we stop with stopping unwanted behavior. I'll stop it there. So at that level, so there's either behaviors misapplied through at the response level, and it's misapplied at a dog expressing control level. Okay, understand there's two ways that word is misapplied here. Okay, stopping unwanted behavior. No, the dog has gained control in a relationship. It's manifesting and being expressed in certain ways. That's what so you want to think about relationship. Just like a selfish child. A selfish child becomes more and more selfish. What happens? Right? Behavioral issues. Right? Selfishness. I talk about stinking thinking. It's expressed. Right? It's all about me. It's no different. So understand that, even the words that are used in the dog training world are superficial. Because everything branches off the superficial idea. So you're not going to have depth. The dots aren't going to connect. That's why these words are used. They're misapplied. They're hijacked. And, it's like you have to think different. Well, you have to think the right way, actually.
Already exists. We've done this thousands of times. It is successful. And enjoy. Remember, any negativity, any shaming, anything like that, we delete that.
So here's the other thing I want to talk about. There's several things I want to talk about here. So here, and this is the problem. It's like trainers, it's like they get to a level, and you see this where it's like they try to just push forward. It's like any negativity, and some of them will even at a certain point say, well, even negativity is like is still being popular. It's still going to drive views and stuff. See, the dog training world is so twisted up. So they say, well, I'm just going to delete comments. No, trying to push forward only works for so long. Okay. Because it's just going, because think of all that. So the way to deal with stuff is actually provide clarity, and not just that, actually be aligned with the right process to begin with.
You know what? It works. We've done it so many times, and frankly, people are coming here to learn how to do things properly. All right.
So just saying, well, it works, right? Throwing down that bonker, creating a dog is confused and gets startled, right? Well, how do you frame that up if much of society is looking for answers, but not just that, everything's based on appearances where people are engaged in bribery, because that's what it becomes. That's that's really the big part of what learning theory is, using treats, bribing dogs. And then you get certain reaction from a dog because now you can't reconcile those reactions because everything's about bribery. So it's going to generate a lot of heat. Okay, right? I talk about that. It's like, understand there's so many issues here. So if you use something like the bonker and you cause a certain reaction, you're going to get challenged because then at the same time, you're aligned with this idea of things. You're trying to play all sides. You can only do that for so long. You understand that just doesn't work out. But again, this is where the dog training works, because sooner or later it all escalates. That's what you're seeing happening in the dog training world.
Right, madly in love with you, and guys, I'll talk to you later. Always remember, be nice. Bye.
So here, the setup, you see this dog about to, so talk about this because this is a seminar. This is where everything all, the controversy all happened. This is been trained to be a service dog for this dog owner, Now she has, again, physical challenge. Now I train service dogs. I deal with, owners with, physical challenges. Now here's the thing, okay, and this is the thing about to understand. We talk about the role of influence, okay, and here you have a situation where dogs gain control in the relationship. She's there for help, and so this whole bonker concept, okay, follows the path of a third party, okay, which means Gellman is just standing over here with the bonker, ready to go, okay. The setup here is this dog is reactive towards other dogs. And so the goal here is to intercept, okay, this dog's, stinking thinking. But understand balanced dog trainers, they don't dial in a certain way, but so this is going to manifest. But here's the problem. One of the issues here is that, you have a relationship problem going on. Of course, balanced dog trainers don't really think that way. Okay, they just wait for certain moments and try to kind of cherry pick certain moments. Okay, and they'll see other responses as non-problematic. Understand that they're not dialed into a dog's state of mind the right way. So this is one of those cherry picking moments where it's like going to set this in motion now, right? And this is going to come from Gellman. He's going to throw down that rolled up towel, and there's another dog that's down here being, going to be brought into the mix because this dog's reactive. So we need to get that. We need to get this dog expressing control right away, right? But here's the problem: is that this is a recipe for a problem because you have the owner loose leash here, right? You're going to see this now. This is one of the testing things. You're going to see. I believe this is. Let's play this because this is. Yeah. So this is the let's see it moment. Okay. Because this is, I talk about this whole thing, whether it's a dog daddy or anyone else, this whole showy thing, right? Just like, let's see this moment so people can see how bad it is. So then they'll be able to line this up to see how effective the bonker is, right? Or whatever concept that you're going to apply. But here's the problem and this is the way you want to think, because this is one of the themes I talk about in a lot of my videos. The issue about control manifesting. Okay, even finding the working level. You'll see a video I put out on that, by way of using a remote collar. Okay, why certain things don't line up. Because it is about being dialed into a dog's state of mind the right way, at the right level. It is about influence, taking a proactive role. Because we'll talk about that here with intercepting a dog's stinking thinking just as the dog is about to express. Okay, so all that's missing here. Okay, so right here, but then this is a show moment too, where it's like, okay, let's just test it out here. But here's the problem with that. I'll talk about that. Think about it this way. I use the parenting example quite often in my videos. If you're like a so-called professional coming into your home to help out with a relationship problem between you and your selfish child, and the professional coming in saying, well, let's see little Johnny. I want to see him like have a major meltdown playing video games. Because you put on the video game that you know that he's really highly invested in, and you set it all up so little Johnny's going to take the video game system and heave it against the television set and break the television set right down the middle. Brand new latest TV you just bought because you want to see it, right? You want to see. That's the wrong. I mean, just think how crazy that is. Like, no, when you come into a situation, you have enough information to know what's happening. And so you want to, right, bring that parent into the right parenting style immediately. This is why when I go into a home visit session, I'm not going to say, oh, look at the dog and, oh, how great is your dog? No, because everything I do matters. And then you know that everything you do is going to transfer over to that owner. Okay, so you don't want to engage in a certain way of thinking. Okay, there's kind of a serious tone. The dog's under control, and then you're going to dial this person in right away. You're not going to see anything that way because control manifests. It's like a drug. You need to shut that down in a good way. So here, this whole showy thing's a problem right away. Okay, because it's really meant to try to market. Okay, you see this? That's the wrong way to be doing it because it's meant to show the effectiveness of this concept. But what should be happening, right, is this owner, I'll talk about the right way here, is that owner should be facing opposite, away from the dog or dogs. And, when you start to bring the dog closer to start to affect change, to bring influence online, therefore the owner is going to be facing opposite. So she has the advantage now. And then it's going to give you a better picture because now the dog's got to try to turn their head to invest. And when they start to turn their head, guess what? That's going to dial you in because, like, okay, I see control's already starting to manifest through the stinking thinking. They don't have healthy thinking. That's why you're there. So you got to intercept that, but then you dial it in so that it takes the form of a nudge to intercept. You're not waiting, you're not what's called correcting the dog. You're not yanking and cranking because you don't need to now. And therefore, it's not coming through a third party. We'll talk about that too. You need to bring this directly through the owner, the originator of the relationship. Okay, so it's just but you stand there, you're going to be coaching the owner, you're going to be dialing them in. I do this stuff all the time. And bring that dog into a state of agreeableness, relaxation. Right? Here, it's totally opposite what's going on. And I wouldn't be doing any of this. Okay, it's not about seeing anything. It's about knowing what needs to happen immediately. But again, that bonker concept comes to a superficial idea of things. Understand? It's just like just throw that newspaper at your dog, right? It just comes from that, you know. But here, it's about getting dialed in here, okay, to be effective in terms of a dog, in terms of setting this all in motion, so you're going to be successful.
Okay, so sorry.
See, that's what it was. It's like that showy thing, right? It's like selling a product. And don't get me wrong, a lot of trainers do this type of thing, whether it's they walk into your home with a remote collar strapped on the dog. It's the whole thing with just it's like a drive-through mentality. It's just like it's a business, right? But it's like trying to sell a product. Because the videos are putting up, it is a product they're selling. They're selling an idea of things, right? So here, another problem here is that, again, Gellman is the one that's is going to assert influence, which doesn't make sense to the dog. This is why you'll see a startled reaction here, because understand this is all about the dog and owner relationship. So you want to make sure that everything is aligning, coming through that relationship, coming directly from the owner to the dog. And again, anyone that argues to say, well, this, because you'll see his argument, she has a physical challenge, I had to do, no. Again, like I said, you turn opposite, you're there to assist the owner, give them proper control through the leash at what I call baseline. Watch my videos, it's like constant control over this dog to a certain level, which is going to line it up. And then you're right there. There's no loose leash. Okay, it's not super tight either. I talk about, kinetically. Okay, I talk about certain principles that you're going to do to make this so it's going to be very effective. But here it's coming through a third party, okay, through Gellman, throwing down a towel, and this caused confusion. Like, where'd that come from? That's the problem here too. There's several problems, so that's why. But then think about that reaction, because right now we're in a day and age where any sort of reaction from a dog, even balanced dog trainers, are going after each other, right? There's so much because there's no depth. To even try to define something as abuse, this is what having abuse or not abuse from a reaction. Because we're getting to the point now in the dog training world where there's so much confusion, there's lack of depth. Everyone's driven by emotions. That sooner or later someone's going to end up, in prison, okay, with a situation where a dog is startled, right? And that's where this is all going. And don't get me wrong, there's clear abuse that you can look at the situation, but there's so much confusion too, where people are trying to label things for what they're not, because the process itself is driven by, just totally on the surface, appearance-based, no depth. And the example I use, again, think about this because it makes sense. I call it the ice cream truck example, where, a child and parent are, the child's getting ice cream at the ice cream truck. They're getting the ice cream, but the parent says no to the sprinkles. Now, imagine you're an onlooker several feet away watching this interaction and not knowing just how selfish that child is. So when they hear the word no to the sprinkles, they start rolling around on the ground, kicking up their feet. I mean, they look like they're out of control at that moment. And you're looking over, you're saying that parent, because you're looking at cause and effect, you're just looking at the reactionary level. That parent must have struck the child in the face. Like you're adding to the narrative because, but no, it's the fact that you don't have insider's view. It's about relationship, depth. And that's the same thing here. There's no depth. So dogs are social animals. This is why all the studies you talk about, remote caller studies, they're all inherently flawed at that level. Okay, I mean, I'll talk more about that in some of the videos here, but this is such a mess in the dog training world in general with what's going on. Because I go right back to the book I put out, The Mind and Body Connection. I encourage you to get it. I talk about go right back into Pavlov's research notes. Right at that moment, he pushed away a assistant because they were interfering in his appearance-based study. Right, so it goes start right back then. It's layered up sense, and this is where we're at.
It's okay. Tighten up my leash a little bit. Let me see. Okay, see that right there?
So right here, so leash isn't really tight. Okay, all right. Dog is looking over. Right, but again, this is not about being dialed in the right way at all. And then he's like, "See right there, you can bonk for that."
There, we can bonk right there. Okay. Right? Go ahead. No.
So right there, throws down the towel, and the dog gave a startled reaction because that's the point, confusion. She's saying no at the same time, but Gellman's the one that's throwing it down, like the third party involved. But everything else not lining up. So again, this is what triggered off all the controversy in the dog training world, like tremendous to media contacting me. And again, not wanting to talk to me because, I wasn't just going to talk about the situation that way. And they were like, they were very much left leaning. So, and they published their article on it. But they don't see that's the problem. When you get this whole thing's agenda driven. We're at a level now to even get to a point where we're actually talk about what the real issues are here in the dog training world by way of a process. It's very challenging because most trainers are not incentivized to do the right thing. Because I say this all along, like years ago. The whole thing was, I start looking around saying, well, if there's something we're doing wrong as a human, everything should stop because even one dog shouldn't take the hit because of something we're doing wrong. The information we're putting out there as a process, if that's causing the problem. So you talk about real science. This isn't real science, okay? It doesn't even challenge what the problems are inherent to the application of this idea. So again, this is a bonker. This is what really fired things up, but no clarity. Like nothing came from this. Like it should be that this happened. People are like asking questions, saying, "Okay, like let's figure this stuff out." But we're definitely not in that place yet. Things have to get really, really bad, okay, in the dog training world. But but my encouragement to anyone watching my videos, you should be asking questions that these trainers never cared to ask. A lot of them just jumped in as a part of just marketing and in the business, but they didn't have skin in the game that way. Where they're like, okay, let's let the chips fall where they may, but let's figure what's going on here, like what defines a process. I talk about that, but it's going to get again really bad because it's getting bad now. Where balanced dog trainers are losing their tools. Force-free movement's taking over. I made that prediction about the force-free movement taking over to a level in some areas. You'll see it in the UK and Canada, a place like that. Or guess what? You want to be a dog trainer? You have to sign off fully to the force-free agenda. Like, because balanced dog trainers, they can't stop it. If you're looking for answers in balanced dog training, good luck with that. Okay, it just isn't going to happen. I talk about all the issues by way of a process, what's going on here. So my encouragement, anyone watching my stuff, is as an individual, step back and ask the questions these trainers never ask. What's a process? Why are these things happening? I talk about all that. It's an intervention. It's not a learning-based exercise. You kidding me? I mean, just like it wouldn't be with a selfish child that's out of control. I mean, it's ridiculous. But this is where we're at. So again, check out my website. Lots of great information. Thanks for watching.